You're listening to the Business Communicators.
I know that it's a big week for both of you, as you had your Pfizer vaccine just about 2.5 weeks ago, and we spoke about this on the podcast. You can watch our video on LinkedIn and YouTube where we kind of discuss our reactions to getting the COVID-19 vaccine. So both of you are due for your second dose of the Pfizer vaccine this week. Me, on the other hand, I have Moderna, so I am due for the second dose next week. I believe April 8th is the date that I'll get that. But have you guys seen the headlines where brands are really stepping in and encouraging Americans to get the vaccine, and some of the giveaways that they're doing? I mean, Krispy Kreme, if you can show up with the proof, your vaccine card, you can get a free donut per week for the rest of the year. And if you live in Michigan, there's a dispensary, I think in the Detroit area, that is giving free marijuana away to people who show up with a proof of vaccine. I mean, it's wild to me, all of these giveaways that brands are doing. But I'm curious from your take, is this a good communications tactic to potentially get more people vaccinated? Or is this just a publicity stunt that is incredibly well done?
I would say, first off, before, Texas is now going, all adults are able to get vaccinated. So if you can, please do it. I know other states are doing the same. So please do that, just starting off. Second and foremost, living in Texas, I think I got to say it, Shipley's. Come on, Shipley's, get on board here.
Yeah, Shipley's Donuts. And they just, I think, recently sold out too, didn't they? To like a big investor. I don't know if it's in Texas or not, but Hattie, what's your take? Is this a good strategy?
I think it's almost like giving your kid an allowance for cleaning their room. And they still live in your house. So it should be part of their responsibility anyway, because it's your house too.
And they're
so
35.
I kind of compare that to that, because if this is about keeping yourself safe, keeping your family safe, you shouldn't have to give me an incentive to do that's incentive enough. But unfortunately, this hasn't been the case. But it also goes back to people still skeptical about this entire virus. I mean, the vaccine, and not sure, the safety of it. And it puts it on the onus also back on folks to make sure that people understand what it is, what this virus, what the vaccine is about, how safe it is, promote that type of information, keep building on that. So it's almost like, oh, let me just dangle this little sled here. I'm going to give you 25 cents if you go do this. Now, if you get this. So I don't know if it would have made me do it anymore if I were a kid. Well, yeah, it probably would have. But it's unfortunate that has to happen. But if it works, okay. It's a win-win for everybody all the way around.
I think it's a publicity stunt by the vendors. Hey, we need to grab headlines any way possible. Krispy Kreme gives away a free hot donut every time their light's on, so you can drive through and get a free donut from that way. This is just another way to do it. I do question some of the companies that are doing it. So Krispy Kreme, one of the underlying health factors is obesity. Donuts, obesity. A marijuana dispensary, while they said COVID smokers were doing better because they were used to not having oxygen in their lungs. But at the same token, it's kind of like that. And I'm not going to knock dispensaries by any stretch of the imagination, because I don't know enough about them being in Texas. But at the same token, are these giveaways healthy?
I do tend to agree with you, Thomas, that I do think it's more of a publicity stunt, and these companies are, one, doing their part and at least saying, you should get a vaccine. And I think any incentive for people to get a vaccine is good, because that means the quicker the economy can reopen. If someone wants to give me a free Krispy Kreme, count me in. I'm in.
If I'm driving by and I see a Krispy Kreme, I'm gonna be like, donut sounds really good. I'm gonna stop.
I saw there were three locations in Houston, so I might be doing a Krispy Kreme tour each week, just going from one location to the next. But it is interesting to look at the vaccine rollout overall and the communications efforts behind it. And we kind of touched on this probably 2 months ago on the podcast, on whether the good of the vaccines, like the efficacy rate, was actually being communicated properly. And there was a New York Times piece last week that kind of suggested that the media sentiment has been negative and almost downplaying, any positive COVID news that comes out. And then, we've seen the issues with the rollout of the vaccine in Europe. AstraZeneca, they did a great job with the vaccine with Oxford, but from a communication standpoint, they've really, really messed up, confusing some of the efficacy numbers, having the blood clot situation surrounding it. And so it seems like, the science is good. The science is good. The vaccines are effective, but just kind of overall, whether it's the media, whether it's some of these companies, the communication element from the vaccine rollout has been less than desirable.
Society as a whole, we pick and choose what kind of media or what stories we want to listen to. Hey, Austin, I love your opinion, but it's not mine, so what you're saying is not right. And we see that happening with the media nowadays. So I think that there needs to be, the pendulum needs to come back to where people will start to trust the media, that fair and unbalanced, for lack of a better statement. And some of it, I'm gonna kind of play devil's advocate and lean a little bit onto the different producers, the Pfizers, the Modernas, the AstraZenecas, because this is really in crisis. So they were making things from the fly, and at the end of the day, their main goal was to create the vaccine, not have a rollout plan for it. Yes, with these mega companies that bring in millions and billions of dollars a year, yes, their communications team should have been doing a better job, but at the end of the day, the companies themselves did what they were supposed to do.
Well, yeah, they did what they're supposed to do, but you can't have one without the other. You can't
Agreed.
say, hold on, you can't say that the company did their job and then in another breath say, oh, but the media, we need to be able to trust them to get the right information. The company has to give the media the right information to communicate in the first place. So it just goes hand in hand. So why should I trust what either one of you have to say? Just put it out there, because if you also think about it, it was something that Austin said a few minutes ago, in terms of all of the information that we've gotten about this vaccine has always been negative. It's always been about the rise. The numbers are continuing to rise versus the efficacy, or I get that word wrong all the time, of the vaccines itself. We're hearing more about there's still a rise here. There's still a rise. So you've got to have some sort of strategy better that is helping us understand that the rates for this vaccine are so much better and can reduce the number of hospitalizations, the safety of it. That's what we need to hear more of. But it's going to take the companies, they have to take some responsibility for giving this information out, or making sure that it's also getting out as well.
Yeah, there's been a few publications that have done a good job of showing the charts. The New York Times, each day they send out a vaccine tracker, show how many cases there are in the U.S., how many, what the R rate is. And then I think 538 has also done a good job as well. And there's a few others that I can't think of off the top of my head on Twitter. But they've showed the countries that have been vaccinated, that have the higher vaccine rates, like the United States, like Israel, like the UK. And you can definitely see the curve fall down. It's almost like a nosedive as the vaccines go up. So I think that is an extreme positive. But then they also show the charts of the rest of the EU, for example, and Latin America, who don't have the same vaccine rates as we do in the United States. And the cases are still going up. There are still lockdowns happening in some of these countries. And so I think that needs to be communicated more broadly, at least to
they also need to tell people why. A lot of these countries don't have access to the vaccine as well.
Right.
But they need to say that.
Right. But I think part of it is there's a lot of people who are still skeptical here in the United States on whether the vaccine will actually work. And I think the science is proving that the vaccine is working. But the problem is you still have people saying, oh, well, person so-and-so who had the vaccine ended up testing positive. And it's like, well, we know that the vaccine is 95% effective if you get the Pfizer. So there are going to be some smaller cases. But what they're not telling you is that person who tested positive is asymptomatic. They're not being hospitalized. They don't really have bad symptoms. And that just, again, goes to show that the vaccine is helping out. So that message needs to be clearly communicated. And that takes a full 360-degree effort from the government, the media, and the companies. And everyone needs to step up to do their part to, help reopen the global economy.
There's also a frequency around that, too. They're not saying that it's frequent enough.
Exactly.
So the challenge comes into play is you're talking to the media, getting the message out there through the traditional channels, your big newspapers, your big television ads. They're in the business to make money and sell ads. When I was doing public relations, there was the statement, if it bleeds, it leads, meaning that, unfortunately the negative news is what moves the needle on their sales, their ad revenue, everything in between. So telling a rosy story, everything's, sunshine and puppies and rainbows, you might sell one day, but it's not going to go over the long term. So it does need to be fair and balanced. That goes back to that statement about the media being fair and balanced. They're in the business to sell papers. They're in the business to get viewers. They're in the business to get advertising dollars. And so is that the broken system with it? I think last week there was another round of hearings with Twitter and Facebook and Google or Alphabet on Capitol Hill, where the senators were asking, does your platform really move the needle? Yes or no? And of course, all of them were like dodging around the answers because they're still investigating the whole Capitol riot stuff. But the CEO of Twitter, Jack Dorsey, tweeted out, ? Yes or no? And one of the senators says, hey, which is winning? Like he was trying to troll them, and they wound up trolling him back. And it was yes. And so is it the media's responsibility to fair and balance? Yes. Is it the company's responsibility to fair and balance? Yes. But then it's also us as a society to make sure that we're not spreading the misinformation on the social media platforms, because we're seeing time and time again that while they are censoring, it's not near the thing it is.
You can only spread what you have.
Yeah. Yeah.
COVID.
And that falls on communicators. Any good information, any good data that you have, shout it loud and clear. Let people know.
Exactly. Use all the channels the way they're supposed to be used. Don't recant the same message for every single possible channel, medium.
And
Absolutely.
if you see negative news, call it out.
Yeah.
Call it out. I mean, that's what you would do if it was your business in the media that was, maybe had a negative light. You would reach out to that reporter, have an introductory conversation, go from there. I mean, correct the record. But it's going to be interesting to see what other bribes come our way for the vaccine. Maybe incentives, whatever you want to call it. I'm hoping there's an incentive, like if you prove you're vaccinated, your student loans just go away. That would be nice.
That's what I'm talking about. That's not a bribe. That's good. That's a reward.
or maybe if you get your vaccines, then you get like a free United round trip ticket, something like that. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here. If you want to throw any travel incentives,
I'm with that. I'm with that because I don't care about no donut.
All inclusive to Tahiti, Bora Bora, Overwater Bungalow. So Tahiti tourism, please reach out to the
tickets.
business communicator. We're looking for sponsors, and we'll have to test that one out first.
Yeah, we will come to a podcast in your country at your resort if you are interested. So let us know. Just shoot us an email, podcast@ibchouston.com, or hit us up on social media. That's the best way to get in touch.
You've been listening to The Business Communicators.